BRUCAST is back, baby.
This BRUCAST episode is brought to you by the BRUCAST Store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BRUCAST. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Visit now brew-cast.com/store. Link below.
Back with the fire, can't you see the flames? From Deutschland steps comes the BRUCAST name. Voices like thunder breaking all the chains. Unleash the fury like a runaway train.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another BRUCAST episode. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rate the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast recommends to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. BRUCAST also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where I upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BRUCAST on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links in the description below.
Here we thrive, we survive!
Hey there, BRUCAST fans, you know what's up, I know what's up. It's time to talk about this month's giveaway. Yes, we're gonna announce the winner of this beautiful, awesome, sexy t-shirt at the end of this month, and all you have to do is subscribe and comment, and by doing that, you're gonna be then running to win this awesome, beautiful, sexy t-shirts. It's a giveaway. It's a worldwide giveaway. We've done so many of those already. It has been a huge success. So we're gonna keep doing them. Again, all you have to do is subscribe here on YouTube and comment. You can comment anything. Comment your opinion about the video, what you thought about today's episode. Comment potato, whatever you like it. As long as you comment, you're gonna be running showing this beautiful t-shirt. Stay tuned. Our guest today is Steven Porro. Steven Porro is an award-winning author, designer, and former Hollywood actor whose heartfelt memoir, A Cup of Tea, humorously and poignantly chronicles his journey as a caregiver for his aging mother. With a knack, that's how I say that, with a knack for storytelling and a unique perspective on the parent-child role reversal, Mark offers engaging discussions on caregiving, family dynamics, and finding joy in life's unexpected turns. Well, Mark, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here.
It's an honor. I am so happy to have you. So speaking from France, from your beautiful apartment, we were talking about it before starting. How awesome is that place? I cannot believe it. It's apartment, guys.
It's very cool. It's almost 500 years old. And this village is a very artsy village. They say Molière was born here, and it has a lot of political and architectural and art history. They have their own kind of Hollywood Walk of Fame, so I'm used to that. I spent 28 years in Hollywood, so it's a very cool, very creative, and very inspiring place to for me now as a writer. So this is where I write my books.
That's wonderful. Bienvenue, Marc.
Yes.
I have a question. So, what about to explore a little bit about this Hollywood part? So, this is very interesting. For how long you've been an actor again, and what type Yeah, go ahead.
I was out there for 28 years. Well, there's my mother. I call her. I have a chapter in the book called "The Champion of Arts." And she loved the arts, and I grew up about 20 miles away from New York City. And so we would go in there and go see Broadway plays. And when the World's Fair was there, we visited. We would go to Radio City Music Hall and see a new movie. We would go to museums, and the ballet was a big thing for our family. My mother, I guess, was a fan, and we all got into the ballet. She had 6 kids, and 5 of us all studied the ballet. I did it for a short time, but my first, it was almost like a Hollywood movie. My older brother and older sisters were like little stars. as kids, and then they developed into being pretty good dancers. And I wasn't in it at the time. I think I was like 6 or 7, and they were in performing in Lincoln Center, New York City, with the Royal Danish Ballet. And so I went to see them, and I was backstage in the dressing room, and some guy bursts through the door and says, "Hey, we need another little kid for the show." And I'm looking around, and he locks eyes with me, and he says, "You kid, you want to be in the show?" And I hesitated, and he says, "And we'll pay you." And I said, "Well, now we're talking." So I got paid $5 a performance. I got hustled right into a costume and the I guess makeup, and I got this great little Errol Flynn outfit. And a hat with a feather coming out, and it was great. I think my brother was jealous. I think I got a better costume than he. And then we had to. We were like little extras. There was a big bridge above the stage where the real dancers were, and we were up on the stage, and we're supposed to act like we're having a really good time, and we certainly were. And then on cue, we had to throw paper flowers that floated down to the onto the stage. And so my debut was Lincoln Center. And then after that, I thought this was pretty cool. So I started taking ballet, and it was great because my brother and I were the only guys in the entire school. So it was lovely being surrounded by all these girls. And but I had a real issue with my ballet teacher. Her name was Irene Fokin. She was a very strict Russian teacher, and we butted heads quite a bit because I was a kind of a stubborn kid. And so I retired, I think, officially at around 11 years old.
Oh.
And then I went off to school and went to, I was originally going to go to medical school at Ohio State University, ended up getting a Bachelor of Science in Industrial Design, and worked for some really good design firms. And then that acting bug somehow reemerged. And so I pretty much gave up a real good design career to go out and for the job security of being an actor in Hollywood in 1984. But it was good. I had, I wanted to be a good actor, so I started studying from day one. And my goal was to get on a show like Hill Street Blues because I wanted to be a good actor. And that was one of the top shows at the time. And less than 2 years later, I was on Hill Street Blues. So that was my start in Hollywood.
That's amazing. So when you say like, please don't kill me, okay? But I hear that when it comes to being an actor, it has so much to do with charisma compared to is that the case?
Well, it certainly doesn't hurt, but I know there's a lot of it's luck and timing.
And timing, okay.
I had a pretty good run in the 80s and early 90s. And most of that was me hustling around for it. But also, you got to be a good actor. If you go in and you have a good audition, that really helps, to start off when you're first meeting people, unless you fall flat in your face. And I had a few of those as well. But you got to have a thick skin and get back up and do it again, no matter what. The people who are the gatekeepers say about you, or it helps if you have a good aggressive agent. But there are a lot of actors who are really shy in person.
Really?
And I would say they do not have charisma, but boy, they know how to turn it on when it counts. So charisma helps because you got to do a lot of that schmoozing and stuff, but there's a lot of really good actors who are horrible in social situations, but they're some of our best actors. So I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to it, but you got to be a little crazy to do it. And you got to love it. And I did for a while, but you get to a point where you say, I'm hungry.
What do you mean, like hungry, like for food?
I'd like to eat some food. One thing I learned, one of the best, poverty sucks.
Yeah.
One year I just said I'm not going to do any, because I kept doing design work. That's what helped me get through a lot of the rough times. But one year I said I'm just going to be an actor, and boy, it was I guess good for motivation, but boy, it was a struggle.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to comment a little bit on the charisma thing because I have a friend who actually met Jack Black, and
Yeah.
he met him backstage one of the shows, and he said like it was not a completely different person, but it was like super. You know what? I don't know because I was not there. I'm just telling a story of someone who told me a story, so I might be not telling it correct. But the thing is, he told me that Jack Black was a completely different person, was kind of cold and like not. It was not like this cheerful, jumpy persona was jumping all over the place. And he was like, "What's up? Well, like, what's happening? Are you okay?" It's like, no, bro. When the cameras are on, like I go crazy, but that's the time that I have reserved to spend all my energy, you know? And then
Yeah.
when the camera is off, like I'm just calm again. Kind of makes
Yeah.
sense, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's hard to be, let's say, on all the time.
Yeah.
And if you're being, let's say, paid to be on, you want to reserve some energy for when it really counts. So yeah.
All right. So you said that you needed to eat. And I also remember you said that you were paid $5 per performance. So that's really doesn't sound a lot. It's safe to say that.
I was 7 years old.
Oh, but even then, that's not enough, right? Still, like if you're performing in New York, $5 is that a doesn't
In the
sound.
early 60s,
How much would be that today?
that'd probably be about $8 million a show, I would say. If I'm doing my math correctly, yeah, that would be about I have no idea. But here's what's funny. So I got paid $5 a show, let's say in 1963. Boy, there goes the age thing. And then the last play that I did in LA was around 2012. And I got paid around the same amount for that play
I'm
40 years later.
I'm asking. I'm sorry, guys. I need to ask ChatGPT. So $5 in 1953 adjusted for inflation in 2025. I just need to look it up. Oh, he's searching in the web. Okay, so it's about $60. Okay, for a young man, it's okay.
Yeah, that would have been. I would take that. I would take that now.
All right, Mark. So why you left? Why you're no longer an actor?
Well, you get old and you get tired. And I got into writing, and I really like the writing. In Hollywood, the writing is good, but again, unless you're a big name or something, you don't have all that much control. So you write like crazy, and you write stories that you love, and you write screenplays and films and short films and things like that. But if they don't get sold, it's a little, I guess, depressing. But I learned I love the craft of writing. But what I love about now writing books is I've only written one book, but I had full control until I signed on with a publisher. But even with the publisher, they were great because I had the final say. And so it's my story. I wanted to tell it my way. And they helped. I had a couple of editors that were great to work with, but the final say was mine. And I enjoy having that kind of control because sometimes, let's say if you write a screenplay in Hollywood and it gets sold, they can do whatever they want to it because you're now gone. And that can be a little scary. And my first, let's say, introduction to that was I studied at the Beverly Hills Playhouse, and a lot of really good people went through there, writers as well as actors and directors. And this one writer had his first movie being produced by a big producer and had big stars in it. All of them will go nameless. And we went to the screening, and he had his head in his hands the whole time because they destroyed the film that he wrote.
Oh no.
And that's not unusual, but it broke his heart. And I felt so bad for him. And you say, boy, do you want to go through that? So it's a tough business. But I'm sure he made, some good money selling it. And that paved the way to get more jobs and stuff like that. But that's a little heartbreaking. So if I wrote, let's say this, my memoir is my story about caring for mom. And if someone took that and completely changed it, that would be heartbreaking. Now, we have people talking about making it into a movie. So I may have to go through that with my head and hands, depending on how much power I have. So when people say, oh, we want to make it a movie, I'm not that excited about it.
Why?
Unless Meryl Streep does the part of my mother. That's a hint, Meryl. You're a Jersey girl. Mom's a Jersey girl.
She's a wonderful actress.
Yeah.
But why do you think that's so common? Like you mentioned, it's not unusual for producers and big studios to change drastically the vision of the director or the original creator. Why do you think that happens so much? Do you think they have so little trust in the product itself that they feel the urge to change it to their liking?
Well, I think even in design, everybody who gets their fingers into a project wants to leave their mark. So they all want to do something.
Okay.
In Hollywood, it's let's say a director's medium, film. So as soon as you sign on with the director, he's going to have an idea of what to do with that story, and it's his film. So he has if he's a big enough director, has the power to do that. And in television, the writers have a little more power, and so they can control things a little more. But it's not unusual. And then if you do run, Clint Eastwood's reputation is he gets a script that he likes and he barely changes it. He just says, "Let's go," and we shoot the movie. So I think anybody that works with Clint has always, I think, pretty much been happy with how he treats the script, the respect he has for the writer and the words that are on the page. But sometimes big actors will make changes also. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not so much. So enough about Hollywood. I will have to start drinking whiskey if we keep going. I'm retired and I live in the south of France. So right now, life is good.
All right. In this case, let's not get you drunk. Let's talk about your book. So, you wrote this memoir, and as far as I understand, is about the relationship you had with your mother. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. In 2011 is when this thing happened. So I was in Hollywood still, but I had a snack food business. So I was still acting. And I had a snack food business that my brother and I started to honor my dad. He invented a half pop popcorn that was a family secret for decades. And I decided it was time to treat the world to this because it was a lovely snack that we loved as kids. And then when I started making it out in LA, a lot of people in Hollywood went nuts over it. So that was my main job at that point. And then my brother called. My mom was living in the house we all grew up in New Jersey. And she just kind of, I think, gave up on life. She was not happy in her house and was a bit depressed. And I think she looked around and said, boy, if this is what my life is going to be, I'm done. I'm out of here. So she kind of willed herself to die. And her doctor cut off all meds and food, and hospice was called. And when hospice is called, it's usually not a great outcome. And so she had 6 kids, and we all flew in. My dad passed about 14 years earlier, so she was alone in the house, but we had a family living upstairs that were overseeing household duties and doing the grocery shopping and cooking and stuff for her. My mom was just turned 89. She could still function, but she needed some help with the practical things. And but she just kind of gave up. So she's in bed and I call it a semi-comatose state. And hospice was there, and they said, there's no meds, no food. Give her a little moisture on her lips to keep her comfortable, but that was it. She's going to transition. So we were all on death watch. And she didn't speak. She barely opened her eyes, but she did respond a little bit to touch. And so I think after a few weeks, she realized that her kids were there, and she started coming out of it. And about 3 weeks later, she actually snapped out of it. One of the hospice nurses broke the rules because there was, again, no food. And she asked my mom if she was hungry. And my mom's, for 3 weeks, has just been laying there doing nothing. And all of a sudden, her eyes popped open like a dinner bell rang. And then the nurse accused us of starving our mother to death, which we were not doing. But since I found out after writing this book and doing a lot of research, that kind of stuff does happen. There's a lot of evil stuff that happens as our loved ones get older, especially if people did not get along with them. So there's some weird stuff that people will do for money and inheritance and all that stuff. So, but that wasn't the case with us. And so we told the lady to call her supervisor, and the supervisor told her to leave. And she did, and another nurse came in. But before that nurse came in, I'm thinking maybe hospice was wrong, and maybe that doctor was wrong, and maybe mom's not ready to go. So I felt really guilty that we weren't giving her any food. So I went in and asked her, and I said, "Mom, are you hungry?" And she said, "Well, what do you got?" And those were the first words she spoke in about 3 weeks. And I said, "Well, anything you want." And she said, "Well, how about some pumpkin pie?" At this time, it's now March, and March is not pumpkin pie season in the United States. So I said, okay. And so I went out in the living room. My brother was there, who lived locally, and said, "You want to go out and see if you could find some pumpkin pies?" And he came back in less than 30 minutes with 2 fresh pumpkin pies. And I gave a spoonful to Mom, and she spit out the first spoonful because that was the first food in weeks. And I said, "Well, that didn't go so well, but let's try again." And so the second spoonful went down, and then she ended up downing half the pie, and that gave her all kinds of energy. She was back. And the next day, she downed the other half. And then I think on the next day, she downed the entire pie, the second pie. But she was back. The color came back in her face. She was alert, and it was like, this is great. So I think, and I have a chapter in the book called A Silent Scream. I think it was a cry for help. She wanted love back in her house and love back in her life. And with all her children being there, and now feeding her and caring for her and showing her that we did love and didn't want her to leave. So she came back to us at that point.
Wow. That's so impressive. Like how the human body can go for 3 weeks without food.
Yep.
That's impressive. Like I'm sure a little bit confused. I'm gonna be honest. How or why any doctors would recommend just not feeding her? How is this helpful?
If now I don't know the relationship with her and her doctor, but the doctor never saw her. My brother put her to bed, and she just wasn't responsive to anything. So the doctor heard that and said, "Okay, she's going." At that point, she's 89 years old. And whether this is the American health system or whatever, but
Oh my God.
I didn't think it was a great call, but they're like, well, whatever. Now, hospice, when they come, they're great because, again, they're, at least in New Jersey, they're contracted to stay 6 months, but normally if hospice is called, someone doesn't last that long. But they were really good to my mother, and my younger sister and I hung out with them because we wanted to learn how to take care of our mother for as long as she wanted to be around. So we learned all the tips and tricks from them, how to change the diapers, how to address any medical needs, how to change the bed with a helpless patient in the bed. And it was great. And I think that's what also helped our mother snap out of it. So,
Of course, she felt loved, right? She felt taken care of.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Man, this other doctor is just like, I think he was depressed himself. Basically, he was like, he was giving up on his life. He didn't care about his job. Like he just assumed that this lady who was clearly old and not feeling well was on her deathbed. So he just assumed that's it. Don't do anything. That's kind of irresponsible, right?
Well, I don't know again the whole relationship with them or not
Okay.
between my mom and the doctor. So I don't want to disparage anybody. It was a little cold, let's say, from my opinion. But I don't know the history that built up to that. So there may have been a number of calls like this because my mother did suffer from some depression throughout her life. She hid it very well. Later in life, she hid it less. The filters fade with age. So that's when you get a lot of these grumpy old people who tell the truth.
Yeah, yeah. I was talking with a friend of mine. Like, as people get older, either they become extremely resentful or extremely kind. Like, there's no in between.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Mark, I would like to share a story real quick. I think I shared that on the podcast before. So I live in Germany, right? And as soon as I moved to Germany, that was about 9 years ago. I had something called the lymph node. I don't know how the English term. Like, you have those lymph nodes in your body,
Under the arms, yeah.
under the arm. One of them got inflated. I don't know the medical term, but it became inflamed. It became a tumor. It was like big as a fist, and I was clearly not feeling well. It was hurting. I was like, there was something wrong. So let's go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital, and the first hospital that I went to here in Germany, I don't want to say it's a completely different situation with your mom, right? But the doctor direction was more or less the same. Just don't do anything. Like, everything will be fine. You can stay at the hospital. You can go home. Do whatever you want. Like, it's not a problem. Like, I stayed, I think, 1 week at the hospital. The thing kept growing, kept getting worse. I kept feeling worse and worse every time. And then after 1 week and a half, they said, yeah, you're going to feel better. Just go home. And I was like, I'm dying. What's going on here? And I called my mom. At the time, my mom was like, what? That's insane. She instantly flew. She was living in France at the time. She instantly flew all the way from France to Germany. She went to the hospital. She made a scene. She started like, wow, how dare you treat my son like that? And she just took me out of that hospital, went to another one in the same city. Different doctors, right? As soon as we met those different doctors, different people, right? Different opinions. They said, Bruno, you're going to die. Like, you're going to go to a surgery table tomorrow. And so we did, and everything went fine. But just like, it's a different story from your mom, of course. But I think my point is, normally we as people, at least I see a doctor, I feel like he holds all the knowledge. He knows what he's talking about. He went to university for 10 years, who knows how long. So he knows everything. If he says I'm fine, I'm fine. But I think that's not true. Like, doctors are people, like anyone. Right. I think some of them are prone to errors.
Yeah. They're human, yeah. So we all have our issues, I guess, or flaws. Or it also, it's a money thing. At least in the States, they say, hey, you're fine because you don't have the right insurance, so they don't want to deal with it, and it's a shame. But yeah, that's another book.
All right, so. Then you went to the hospice, right? And they start helping you learn how to take care of your mom.
Yeah. So while I was there, I stayed there for several weeks. Everybody else started going home because they had their own lives, and I was never married, had no children. I did have to go back to LA every few months. But I realized that my mom deserved better, and so I had to play a bigger role in caring for her. So I didn't move back right away, but I came back in September. So a few months later, when one of her grandchildren was getting married, and I cared for her again for a couple of weeks, and I just saw the response was so positive that I think I had to, I determined I had to play a bigger role in caring for her. So I asked her for permission. I said, you want me to come home and make sure you're treated like this for the rest of your life? And she said, yeah. And so it was interesting. So I said, all right, so if I do this, first of all, we're going to have fun. And she was okay. And I said, second of all, that means I'm now in charge. And her mood completely changed. And I said, you must now obey me. And she looked me dead in the eye and then puckered up for a kiss. I called her a kissing bandit. She loved a kiss. And I wasn't sure if that was a sign of surrender or one wishing me luck. But she was a tough cookie. So I gave her a kiss and hoped for the best. And she could be difficult, but I knew her pretty well, and I had a really good relationship with both of my folks. I was a very curious kid with very little, I guess, not afraid to cross any lines and stuff like that. So I got both of my parents, who grew up in the 20s and 30s, so they always kept their emotions to themselves, and any pain. I don't remember really any of my folks talking about pain in their lives, and you never talked about depression and your feelings and all that business. They were tough people, but I got them both to open up in my years and later years, and it was great because they both trusted me quite a bit. So I knew my mom trusted me, and luckily my siblings trusted me, and they all yielded. They let me take over, and it was great because for a son, it's unusual for a son to jump in for taking over the 24/7 caregiving. We're catching up, but it's still about 60-40. It falls on the daughters and the wives and stuff to be the caregiver. And so I took a little bit of a romantic approach. I felt my mom's dignity was kind of whittled away, whether it was just the age or those the people who were living upstairs. And so one of the first things I did was I bought her a new wardrobe. I didn't like these night dresses or day dresses. They were tattered, and she looked like an old lady. And she was, up in years, but she was very pretty. And she had long hair now. She usually, after having all those kids, her hair got shorter and was in perms and stuff like that. Now she had a beautiful long hair like she did in her youth, and that was really fun. And I grew up with 3 sisters, so I learned a lot more than just learning how to put the toilet seat down. So my sisters all had long hair, so I knew how to braid it and certainly put it in ponytails and try to make her feel pretty. And that's one of the things I learned early on is wanting to feel pretty doesn't go away with age. And so when mom saw the attention I was paying to her, again, she kind of blossomed, and it was infectious. The people would see how well she liked her new clothing and how well she was treated, and it was fun. And I just did it because I thought it was a nice thing for his son to do for his mom. And then she worked full time. She was a proofreader for the largest newspaper in New Jersey. And then she had 6 kids. So she didn't get to treat herself very often. But one of the things she liked to do is go to the beauty parlor once a week for a shampoo and set and get her nails done. She had beautiful natural nails. She was a hand model in her late teens, early 20s. And so those nails were like the crown jewels. And I don't know the last time she went to a beauty parlor, but when she would visit me in Hollywood, I would take her to my friend's salon in Beverly Hills. And she got the movie star treatment. And I know she really liked that. So I decided to try to recreate that at home. So I normally gave her a sponge bath in the morning, get her ready for the day, and then a sponge bath at night to get her ready for bed. And so on Day of Beauty, I called it, we had a commode bedside. And while she was on the commode, I would soak her feet in Epsom salts and I would shampoo her hair. And when she was finished on the commode, then I gave her a sponge bath and then body lotion and a full body massage. And then she picked out her new wardrobe, and then we got her ready for the into the wheelchair. And then I blow dried her hair and then put it in either a ponytail or a braid for bonus points. And then I did her nails. And then finished it off with some bright red lipstick to match the nails. And I just thought this was a nice thing. And she seemed to like it. But I didn't realize how powerful it was until when I was finished, I would wheel her into the kitchen for breakfast. And I cooked all her meals and tried to keep them on the healthy side. And on the way to the kitchen, we have a big mirror in the dining room, a big round mirror. And so I parked her in front of that mirror and leaned in and said, "Who's that pretty girl?" And she just beamed. And it was amazing, the effect. I thought, oh, this is just a nice gesture to make her feel pretty. But boy, that was powerful. And again, it was infectious. Everybody saw how pretty she felt and looked. And again, I think when we get old, or when our loved ones get old, we don't think about these little things. But when's the last time she looked in a mirror? I have no idea. When's the last time she looked in the mirror and liked what she saw? Again, no idea. But boy, she loved what she saw that day. And so every morning before we went to breakfast, I would park her in front of that mirror and say, "Who's that pretty girl?" And it was great. And so that made me feel really good to make her feel good.
Wow, that's wonderful. And you can tell, like, as you talk about it, you like doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you could caregiving is a very difficult, especially if you're doing the 24/7. So mentally, emotionally, and physically, it takes a toll. But if you throw the emphasis on pleasing your loved one, another thing I wanted to say is one of my goals was to make her laugh at least once a day. She had a very good sense of humor, as did my dad, and luckily they passed that on to their kids. And so I would, again, I said, we're going to have fun, and if I could make her laugh, that was even better. And so those little, that took the weight off my shoulders, because if I could get her to smile, no matter what I went through, let's say that day, if it was a really rough day, and we had some of those rough days, but boy, if I could get her to smile before she went to bed or laugh, it was great. And so that helped me get through some of those hard times as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people, they just think about the old as the old, and they're not part of society. They're just there to die. They're unimportant. They're all just throw them into the retirement home. Nobody cares about them. And well, I have a very different vision of the old. I keep saying the old, but you mean like the older people, because like I grew up with my grandparents, right?
Yeah.
And I always appreciated so much the stability they provided me, the wisdom that they provided me. And for that same reason, I always like, whoa, like there's something of value on people who are way older than me. Like
Yeah.
just, and I know that in Japan, for example, the culture is completely different, of course. And one of the differences is that they always treat old with like ultimate respect.
Yeah.
It's they have like I don't know, Bruno-san, Mark-san, and then for the old, I think they have something. I don't know. I'm not Japanese, but they have the ultimate respect for the old. For and I feel like here in the West, it's a little bit the opposite.
Yeah.
Would you
Oh, yeah,
say
yeah.
so? Yeah.
The norm used to be the three generations were in the same household, and you grow up with your grandparents. I only had one grandparent. My mother's parents died before she was married, and my grandfather died when I was around 1 year old, so I never knew him directly. But we would visit my grandmother quite regularly, and she was great. I had very fond memories of my grandmother, yeah, they have a lot of wisdom. Obviously, they have a life of experience that we could all learn from. One of the things you have to learn, I guess, as they get older and we're around them more, is they're not that same person that you grew up with.
Oh.
They're a little slower. They may be they could be a little more fragile. They may forget. There was a point where early on, my mother didn't remember my name.
Oof.
She remembered the other kids, but I'm the one taking care of her and wiping her butt several times a day. And she, one morning, again, she had a wicked sense of humor, so I wasn't sure if she was kidding or not. But one morning I went in, I brought her a juice first thing in the morning. She liked her fresh juice in a little sippy cup. And she said, now, what is it I call you? And I said, you're kidding, right? And she says, no. I said, name your kids. And she said, Laurel, Michael, Carol, David, DC. And she was stumped.
She was joking. Come on.
No, she wasn't. And I said, Mark. And she goes, oh, Mark. And I thought, okay, we're good. And then she says, Mark with a K? And I said, yeah, you named me. Mark with the K, your favorite son. And she says, I don't have favorites. I said, well, you have a favorite to forget. And so I have a chapter in the book titled, Does Wiping Butt Cause Amnesia? And since I was the one doing all that, and I'm the only one she forgot, I have proof that, in fact, it does. So be careful, people.
Oh, man. I love the sense of humor. Mark, I mean, we were talking about your mom, but I haven't asked yet. What's her name?
Genevieve Mary Brennan was her maiden name. She was Irish. Her dad was Irish. Her mother actually was French. So she married an Italian. So the Italians and the Irish lived fairly close in New York. And so it wasn't unusual for those two people to pair up. And so, but we're all immigrants. So I'm French, Irish, Italian, and German. And so it was a nice combination.
Genevieve. All right. I need to ask you, why did you think you felt so compelled to take care of her at this later stage?
It's funny. So when you write a book, you really have to go back and you really discover a lot about yourself. Again, I had a really good relationship with her, but also she and my dad were married for a long time until he passed, and they had at times a rocky marriage. They were Catholic and stubborn, and so divorce really wasn't in the cards. But there were some tough times, and so I was the youngest son, the fifth out of the six kids, also the tallest, and so maybe that had something to do with it. But I jumped in a number of times to be, I think, filling the protector role for my mom, and it felt good to do that. And there were times that we didn't get along so great while I was growing up, but I always felt supported by her. She never let me down. And no matter what bad things I did growing up and stuff, she was always there and loved me and forgave me for my discretions and things like that. But as we got older, we became more like friends, and the same with my dad. They would come out and visit me in LA, and sometimes together, sometimes separately, and we had a great time, and I really got to know them. And I took my dad to Italy in 1995 to visit the little village where his father came from. And so we spent 16 days together for us, that was a foreign country. Neither of us spoke Italian. His father didn't teach anybody, any of his kids. But we really bonded during that trip, and it was fabulous. And with my mom, it was like, it's my mom. She deserves better. And I think all moms deserve better. Now, there are some people who have mother issues and things like that. I can understand that. But my mom, I just felt compelled to do it. And I'm not sure exactly what it was. I will tell you. All right. So you write the book, right? It took me a few years. I needed emotional distance before I could write the book. So I actually wrote the book in France. But I took a lot of notes because I knew I was going to do something with it. I always recorded family history. It's documented it somehow because I didn't want these things lost. And when I was caring for my mom, I was privy to some really fun conversations and moments that I didn't want my siblings to miss out on. So I started recording these things. And so if you look at, let's say, the book, or you hear the story, it seems like I went back to rescue my mother. And in a sense, I did, because I was the one who stepped in, I guess, to take over the full care of her. And but upon reflection, when writing the book and also discussing it with people like yourselves and on podcasts and interviews and stuff like that, I think that maybe Mom rescued me.
Wow. How so?
Because at that point, I was never married, again, no children. I was a carefree bachelor. I had the business and stuff like that, but I did a lot of really good things, let's say, in life, but nothing really important. You know, if you have a child and you raise that child and you have a marriage, and those are really important things and big decisions and big responsibilities. I didn't have that. And this situation gave me an opportunity, and I have to thank my mom for that. And I was smart enough and lucky enough to jump on that opportunity, because this was the most important role, let's say, I played in life. And the biggest thing that I've done in my life was making sure my mother had the best way to leave this earth. And I call it our adventures. It was 3.5 year. What I captured in the book was our 3.5 year adventure. And when she passed, it was the way to go. She was in her bed. My sister was with me, so she and I were with my mother when she left, and very little pain. And the bed in her bedroom in the house we all grew up in, it was just a lovely way to go. And that yeah, and what came out of it was this certainly these stories. And this book has been resonating with a lot of people all around the world, and the critics have loved it, and the readers have loved it, and some really nice things have come out of it that I didn't even think about when writing it. I just thought, well, I want to record family history, and and I did put my heart and soul in it, but you never know how the world's going to react to something, and the response has been terrific, and it's lovely. So my mom obviously played a big role in that, and I was lucky enough to seize that moment and run with it. And we had a great time. There were some rough times, of course, but overall, it was lovely.
That's beautiful. That's really, really inspiring. I even got a little bit of goosebumps while you're talking about it. I had Jack Kammer on the podcast last week, and one of the things he said is, like, it has been proven that one of the most, if not one of the most, if not the most meaningful thing that you can do in your life is have our relationships. Right. And we also talk about manhood and why so many men feel lost today, don't have meaning. And he said a good way for men to find meaning is to get more responsibility. And there's no better responsibility than caring for someone else.
Yeah.
And then I brought up the example of my cousin that, he's not my son in any way, but just like helping him grow, and he sees me as a role model, right? So as helping him grow and give examples of things that I feel like are healthy and good, like it just fills me with so much joy. But it's a type of joy that you don't get from anywhere else. So I can imagine a little bit of what you felt, in a completely different degree, and it's beautiful. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, there are. I'll tell you. Well, I don't know if there's been funny yet, but a funny story. So, I wanted to return dignity to my mother. Okay. So the wardrobe and the day of beauty and all that stuff, and cooking good meals and showing her love and making her laugh. But she was like a baby, so she slept a lot during the day, and so I had some skills in building and things like that. So I renovated her entire house. during this 3.5 years. I didn't quite finish it before she passed, but and it was lovely, and I included her in most of the decisions. So one of the after breakfast, I would set her in the living room where she got to watch whatever she wanted on TV. Usually it's anything on the Animal Planet. She loved the pets. She was great with pets. And so while she's sitting in the living room, I would go off to Home Depot to pick up the things. The first floor I renovated was the basement. That was an absolute disaster when I came back. And so I'd be walking past her with 2x4s and all the materials and stuff. And she had a little bit of dementia. So this conversation went on several times. And she'd say, "What is going on?" as I'm passing. And I said, "I'm making your house more beautiful." She goes, "Well, who's paying for all that?" And I said, "You are. So cheer up. You may have to go back to work." And we did this almost every day for probably a week or so. And then when I finished a good part of the basement, and then I asked her to help me with the paint colors, and she chose the paint colors. And then when I finished everything except for laying the carpet, I had carpet samples from the carpet guys, and they were little 3-inch squares. And I put 2 of those on her breakfast table, and then went into to fill up her sippy cup with juice again. And I came back, and she had one of those carpet samples in her mouth with a scowl on her face, and she said, "This is not a cookie." I said, "I know, Mom, it's a carpet sample. Which one tastes better?" And she chose the good one.
Oh man, that's funny.
She had fun, and I had fun. Luckily, yeah. But so the last thing that I did was the top floor. And when I renovated the bathroom, I put a big oval-shaped bathtub. So I had a glass shower and then also a big bathtub, because this was about 100-square-foot bathroom. So it was very big, and wanted to make it as luxurious as possible. So when I finished that, I asked Mom if she'd like a bubble bath to christen the new bathroom. And she said, sure. So I carried her upstairs, and then I put her in the tub, and I placed the bubbles to cover various things. And I shot a picture, and she's just grinning from ear to ear, having the best time. And then she passes out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I try to do a good thing, and I've killed my mother. And but at least she smelled good. And then, so I thought she was kidding. So I'm tapping her on the face, and she's out cold. So I pulled her out of the tub and dried her off and put her to bed. And then called up a nurse, and they said she fainted. You left her in the hot water too long, and her blood pressure dropped. So I stayed with her for about 30 minutes, and she snapped out of it. And so she remembered the new bathroom, but nothing about passing out. So it was a win-win. So,
oh man,
you got to be careful even when you try to do good things. Bad things can happen.
Mark, this is really wonderful, but I need to ask you. You're aware that this situation is very unusual. You had 24/7 time to take care of your mom. That's usually not the case when we have a new mother or later in life. Usually people have full-time jobs, families, and kids. I mean, not everyone, but my question is, would you say that's the best approach to take care of you parent, or what would you recommend for those who have a more limited time?
Wow. Well, there are a number of ways you can help. Let's say with my siblings, the 2 middle ones were very hands off. They weren't comfortable doing it. Which was fine, because they did lots of other things that they felt comfortable. So I would say, do what you're comfortable doing, because if you're uncomfortable, your patient, your loved one will feel uncomfortable, and they will probably be resentful that they put you in this position. I felt very comfortable. And again, I had my business in LA. And so I was able to do this, not having anything really holding me back in LA other than my business, but I was able to go back every few months for 1 week to make enough stuff to keep the business afloat. So I was fortunate in that way. And my brother, who lived locally, handled the family finances. So money was not an issue, luckily for us, because he did a great job with all that stuff. So that might have made it a little, that certainly made it easier for me, but that is a circumstance that people have to consider. But I would say the main thing is do what you're comfortable doing. It's very difficult to find caregivers that you can really trust. And I went through that at one point. Before I took over the 24/7, I interviewed caregivers, and I have a chapter in the book about that. And it's tough to find someone you trust with your mother's life, basically. And so I was originally just going to be like a supervisor, overseeing things, and I would go off and do some design work, I guess, during the week or during the day, and then be there in the morning and be there in the evenings. But when we couldn't find someone I thought was going to be, let's say, good enough for my mom, that's when I stepped in. But yeah, it's tough. The way it played out for us, I think, was we were very fortunate. But again, do what you're comfortable doing. If you're okay, because there was no line that I didn't cross, and part of that, I think, my acting came into play there, because I decided to be the caregiver. So I had to, you're seeing your mother naked for the first time. And she's, 89 years old. So you see what the years have done to her and the surgery she's had in the past. And gravity is very cruel. Again, being, let's say, the actor, I said, I'm the caregiver now. So I got to get over it and get on with it, because I have a job to do. And I didn't want my mother to feel uncomfortable. So there were, she was very trusting, and I learned some good things, certainly from hospice, but I also had a nice, I guess, tender, loving care with mom. It's hard to say, but yeah, you gotta find your wheelhouse. That thing that you're good at. So if you're better at being a supervisor, great, do it. If you're better, let's say, keeping the house clean and have someone care for mom, that's fine. Whatever you can do to contribute. And it's just lovely to I think, for our parents to know that the kids care. They put up with us for 18 years. And so they certainly, I think, deserve the love and the care that we can give them in any way. If it's just being there and reading a book to them is lovely. One brother used to come around at midnight and just sit in her bedroom with her. And I don't know if my mom knew he was there, but he would do that. And that would be a lovely thing. So, and that's what he was comfortable doing. And so, yeah, as far as advice, I would say that's the main thing.
Wonderful. I really like that answer. Thank you so much. I have one last question. If there was one thing that people should take away from your book, what would it be?
Wow. Well, I don't call it a how-to book. It's a what I did book. There's a lot of funny stories in there. Again, my folks were funny, and I have a lot of my dad in this book too. And the next book I'm writing is going to focus more on my dad. But there's some very fun stories. People say they laugh out loud and they cry out loud. There's some touching moments. I don't skip over any of the difficult things or some of the personal care things that one has to do. People have said, he's honest and he's open about all of it. So there are moments where I had doubts about if I could keep going with this stuff. Again, it can be very stressful. And But they will, if nothing else, they will be entertained. If they get some tips on what to do, like I think Day of Beauty and the wardrobe stuff were certainly a good things that I did that I really learned the power of. Even with my dad, 2 days before my dad passed, my dad always had his hair neatly combed and he was neatly shaved, and he was very religious. So he was going to meet Jesus very quickly. And so my sister and I gave him a nice clean shave, and I knew he appreciated that because he wanted to see Jesus, being clean shaven and his hair combed. I think he always had a comb in his wallet. Wow. Just in case the wind blew or something, he was ready to go. So wanting to feel pretty and wanting to be handsome doesn't go away at 90. It's those are really important little things that we can do, and even hugs. Let's say with my mom, we had some really cool rituals, and this stuff's in the book too. I can't go over all of it. Don't want to ruin it. But when I got her ready, and she was all dressed and ready to get into the wheelchair, I said, "Morning hug. It's time for a morning hug." And we would hug each other, and sometimes it would. I didn't want to let go, and she didn't want to let go, and we were there a long time, and it was lovely because that's another thing that we miss. We don't get to hug because usually they're in bed or in a wheelchair, so hugs are very difficult. So it's a beautiful thing if you can give them a good hug. I mean, these little things that we forget about. I remember when my mom hugged us and stroked our hair or something like that. Those are lovely little moments. And some of the best moments that I remember with mom was just sitting in the kitchen holding hands, not saying a word. It was fine. There was so much love passed through those hands. And those are the little moments that I think that if they're in the book. So some of those people have called out when they've written me notes or in the reviews and stuff like that I've even forgotten, because there are quite a few of those little things that we came up with. And that's the way I was brought up. So this wasn't just me coming up with this stuff on my own. I was brought up in a very loving, nurturing household where my dad always taught us to care for others. And my mom did the same, but then she especially cared for animals. It was just beautiful. And so it was, and they led by example. They didn't just say, "Oh, you must do this." We just watched what they did. And we grew up watching these lovely examples. So that was another thing that paid big dividends in this adventure with my mom.
Yeah, because I think that's how children learn, right? They don't do what you say, they do what you do.
Yeah. That's really important. That a lot of times that people go, "Oh, you must do this." Well, Dad, you're smoking, and you go, "Well, yeah, well, whatever." So,
all right, Mark. Please remind us the name of your book, where they can find it, where they can find you, and if you have any final remarks.
Okay, so it's called A Cup of Tea on the Commode: My Multitasking Adventures of Caring for Mom and How I Survived to Tell the Tale. It's everywhere. If they Google A Cup of Tea on the Commode, we're everywhere. So it's even on TikTok, but the Facebook, the website is cupofteaonthecommode.org. I have a YouTube channel. We're on Instagram, Pinterest, and all that stuff. The book is on, I guess, all major platforms, but Amazon has all 4 versions. So there's the paperback, the large print paperback, the ebook, and also the audiobook. I recorded the audiobook about 6 months after the book came out. And so anybody has any questions, they can email me, which is acupofteaonthecommode@gmail.com. And so A Cup of Tea on the Commode. And that title came from just practical things. So my mother's favorite beverage was a cup of hot tea with skim milk and no sugar. And sometimes Mother Nature took a little longer than was comfortable for either one of us on the commode. So one morning, kind of as a joke, I said, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea while we're waiting?" And she said, "Sure." And it became a hit. And so that was, again, what became a staple in our morning ritual. So a cup of tea on the commode seemed like a really good title for the book.
Wonderful. Mark, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Brew, it was my pleasure as well. Take care.
Take care. All right, everyone, don't forget to subscribe and comment to maybe win this beautiful t-shirt at the end of the month.
Sexy t-shirt.
Sexy t-shirt. All right, everyone, take care. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast is recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Check out now the BRUCAST store, Explore store, filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BRUCAST. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Buy now at brew-cast.com/store. Again, that's brew-cast.com/store. Link on the description below. Be a BRUCAST model and get free stuff. We'd love to see how you and your loved ones enjoy BRUCAST. Snap a picture of yourself, your family, your friends, or even your pets wearing BRUCAST merch, or watching an episode of the show and send it to us and become part of BRUCAST. We'll feature you and your pictures at the end of every episode, just like the ones you're seeing on the screen right now. You can upload your pictures at brew-cast.com/contact or tag us on social media. Alright everyone, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye bye.